Hello and welcome to episode 148 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet in my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is July 3rd, 2022, but the video will be uploaded on July 4th because I'm one day early in recording this because I'm busy tomorrow. But just to stay in the routine, the video will be published, is that the word? On Monday. I'm just recording a day early. Yeah, so today I'm wearing two really old things. I did not check how old they are, but the top must be at least 8 or 9 years old, and the cowl is maybe as old. Maybe if you're curious, you can check on Ravelry. I think if they're not too old. If they are too old, I didn't even put a date on the project page, but usually I always put the dates when I start and finish my projects. And the cowl is knit out of a mohair yarn that Wolldackel used to sell. I think it's not no longer available. I used 3 different colors, red, grey and black, and I knit a pullover out of the red. I actually ended up knitting 2 pullovers, one shorter pullover and one like a tunic out of the same red, and so I can wear the cowl to both of them. And I knit a pattern with drop stitches. So the holes in the cowl, they are intentional, and I think what I did is I knit 5 stitches, and then I would do 1 yarn over with the next stitch, and then 2 yarn overs, and then 3 yarn overs, and then back 2 yarn overs, 1 yarn over, and then 5 stitches. And then the next round I would just drop the yarn overs. So that way I would have these long stitches, and what you get is supposed to be like a wavy pattern. And I think with the mohair it doesn't really show up as clearly as it would with other yarn, but I still like it. And what you do is, if I have the yarn overs here, I'll do the normal stitches with the next color, and then with the next color I'll have the yarn overs again, so that the different size of stitches sort of evens out, because I have small stitches here and then big stitches here, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I like it. It's long enough to be worn twice if it's cold. It's not cold today, so I'll just wear it round once. But before I put it on again, this is a very simple knitted top that I knit out of some silk yarn. So it's not one of those shiny silk yarns, but there's a special term for the kind of silk that's not shiny, and I think it's sort of made out of leftover bits of the silk, but I'm not quite sure why it's not shiny, why it's it looks the way it does. So it basically rather looks like cotton yarn, but it's supposed to be silk. And the pattern that I used is a really simple one. You just cast on the number of stitches you need for the width, and then you knit to a certain point, and then you, you don't bother about the armholes yet. You knit to a certain point, and then you just split it in half. So I knit 1 half along here, then the other half along there. And then at a certain point, I just took all the stitches together again and knit until the whole thing was long enough. And then I folded it in half, and sewed 2 seams, one here and one here. And that's when you determine how big the armholes are supposed to be. And as you can see, the neckline is a lot lower on this side than on that side. And I sometimes wear it like this, and I sometimes wear it the other way around. So I think the last time I wore the top in the video, I wore it the other way around. So the neckline would be a lot higher in the front and then lower in the back. But I can do it any way I like. So depending on how I feel, or depending on what I wear underneath, if I wear a blouse with a collar, then I usually wear it this way around. Otherwise it's too tight if I have the higher up bit in front. Yeah, but it's really easy to knit, and I like the fact that I can wear it this way round or that way round. And I think I'm not wearing the cowl today. It's too warm. You've seen it. Must be enough for today. So, on to my finished objects. And I have 3 finished objects this week. So the first one, I'll start with the socks. I'm not quite sure which is the oldest project, but I finished my Unbearably Adorable socks from the Sock Madness. And as you can see, I even stitched the contrast color into the little heart on this sock. I did not do it on this sock. So this is the way the heart is knit in the pattern, and this is the way you can cross stitch. I think we were supposed to use just 1 strand of yarn, and then the pattern gives very clear instructions on how to stitch the yarn in the heart, into the heart. But from the pictures that I've seen, I thought it was just a bit, maybe flimsy is not the right word, but it felt like there wasn't that much of the contrast color. So I used the yarn held double. Now I think it's probably a little bit too much, but I don't mind. I think it looks quite nice. And I don't think it'll be a problem if I wear the sock and wear a shoe. If it bothers me once I'm wearing a shoe with the sock, I can still take it out again. It's no problem. But for right now, it looks nice. And if I just wear the socks at home, it won't be a problem. And it's nice to have a bit of white down here. And it's also nice to have 2 different socks. So you know that I don't mind 2 different socks. And yeah, I'm really happy that I finished them. All the patterns from the Sock Madness that were going to be available are available now. So some of the patterns are available for free. Some you have to buy. I don't know if there's any pattern that is not being made available. I don't know. But if there were any socks in the Sock Madness that you wanted to knit to, you can have a look now, and you can either download them for free or buy them depending on what the designer decided. Yeah, so really happy with these. The next finished object is the little baby jacket that I knit out of sock yarn. This is part of the pattern battle where one of the 6 colors that we get in the subscription is chosen, and then everybody who takes part has to knit a different pattern. So I chose to knit this baby jacket out of the book Knit Happy with Self-Striping Yarn. It's the second time I knit the jacket, and last week a customer came who also watches the videos, came and showed me that she knit the same jacket with the same yarn. So that was really interesting to see. But she used a needle a lot smaller. So I think she knit with a 2.5 millimeter needle, and I used a 4 millimeter needle. So the jackets looked quite different, even though we knit the same size. That was really interesting. And I think she said she had 11 grams of yarn left, and I still have all that yarn left from my 100 grams of sock yarn. And that was 20 something. I weighed it and I forgot how much it was, but it's more than, I think it's even 30 grams. Yeah, I was thinking that I could do those baby socks that we're knitting in the knit along out of this yarn, and I could even knit a bigger size if I wanted to. So yeah, but I really like the way with changing the direction of knitting, how the stripes come out differently, and you have different width of stripe. So I think that's really funny. And next time I'm going to knit the pattern, and I will knit the pattern again, I will knit the next bigger size, and I'm pretty sure that the 100 grams will be enough for that. And then there's, I think, one more size in the book, and maybe 100 grams will not be enough for that size. But at some point I'm going to try it out. As you can see, I haven't sewn in any buttons yet. I didn't get around to look for buttons. So I just put a safety pin in there to hold it together. Yeah, but it's still, I still consider it finished. So that was the second finished object. And the third is my gnome for June. So I'm taking part in Sarah Shearer's Year of Gnomes. So I'm knitting a gnome every month, and I always fill out the form that she has on her homepage. There you can take part, you can put in which gnome you knit, and give a link either to your Ravelry page or your Instagram profile, and then you can take part in the when she draws for prizes. But yeah, I'm mainly in it for the fun. And this is the first time I knit a gnome out of cotton, and it's the first glittery gnome. So all three colors, the light gray, the dark gray, and the white, have silver stellina in them so that they glitter. I think with the dark gray it's most obvious on screen. With the white it doesn't really show at all. With the silver it maybe shows a little. But yeah, and this is the first time, no, it's not the first time, that I used a different yarn than sock yarn. So I think the pattern usually calls for either sock yarn, sock fingering weight yarn, or sometimes the big gnomes, she says to use thicker yarn. Can't remember which she calls for. And also one gnome was knit with the yarn held double. But this weight is, I think it's like a sport weight, almost DK weight. That's not in the pattern, especially not for this one. And she asked if we use a different weight, we could put in the yardage that we used and how big the gnome is, so that she can assemble all the information for people who want to use a different yarn. I think the first 3 months I used the alpaca silk yarn, but I was using leftover yarn, and I always forgot to weigh the yarn that I had before I started knitting, so I didn't know how much I used, so I couldn't fill that out. But for him, I used 3 new balls of yarn, so I could weigh them, and I put in the information. And just to show you what the size difference is, so this is the Catania Glamour yarn. It's a cotton yarn with a bit of stellina, and I used a 3mm needle. And this is my original Nathan that I knit when the pattern first came out as a mystery gnome. This is sock yarn. This is hand-dyed yarn by Wolldackel, and I usually knit that with a 2.5mm needle, and this is the size difference. So the new Nathan is not a lot bigger than the old one, but a bit. And they are good friends already. They really like each other. Yeah, so that's the third finished object for today, and the last one. Then on to works in progress. And I continue with socks as usual. And as I finished these socks and I was done with the white in these socks, I continued knitting on my Plaid Pocket socks number 2. So I knit 1 pair for the competition, for the Sock Madness competition. But then after I finished those, I cast on my second pair. And just to remind you what they look like, I'm using this colorful yarn as the main color, and then combine it with dark blue and the white. And I continued knitting on the second sock. And again, I did not do a lot. So last time I showed this, I'd only done the ribbing. Now I knit 1 repeat of the pattern. And now I have to start the pocket, and I needed some time and concentration for that, and I didn't have that, so it didn't get done. But as you can see, the colors are again quite different in both socks. So this sock has the orange and green here, the other one has it here. So I'm now really looking forward to seeing what the pocket is going to look like. Yeah, the pocket is knit at the same time as the rest of the sock with the double knitting technique. So the main color is only knit into the pocket, and the other 2 colors are knit, sort of the sock is knit out of the other 2 colors. So the sock, the pocket is knit just at the same time. So there's no sewing, nothing, no finishing afterwards. And I think it's a great technique. And yeah, that's the next step I have to do with this sock, is start the pocket. And then I cast on a new pair of socks. I think that's the only new cast on from last week. And it's sort of I finished one pair of socks, so I felt I could start another pair of socks. And also I finally finished the pattern battle pattern. That was the baby jacket. And we already received the next parcel in the yarn subscription by Opal that arrived end of May. And then this color was chosen for the new pattern battle. And because I really like the color and I wanted to keep that for myself, I decided to knit a pair of socks. I rarely knit socks in the pattern battle because most people knit socks, and it's usually quite difficult to find a pattern that nobody has chosen before if you're not really quick, and I'm usually not very quick. I'm usually one of the last people to announce their pattern. But I decided to knit a pattern out of this book. It's called Bluestockings by Kate Davies, and it's a book with sock patterns, but also with articles about women who lived in the, I keep forgetting whether it's 17th or 18th century, 18th century, and she writes about women who achieved something special for their time. So we know about them. These were women who were writing things or doing things that other people wrote about. So, and the Bluestockings was like a symbol, I think, for women who were educated, who had chances that most women at that time did not have. And so it's a really interesting book also to read, not just for the knitting in it. And so far I had only knit the very first pair, and most of the socks in the book are actually knee-high. Don't know if that's what you call stockings, but so this is the pattern I knit. I also used the blue yarn so that it were blue stockings, and so you can knit them in the shorter version or in the long version. And the pattern I chose for this yarn, I think it's the only pair that's not written for long, for knee-high socks, but just for normal socks. And this is what it looks like in the book. So it just has it's just a simple pattern with cross stitches. All the socks in the book are knit toe up. So basically I can knit the socks as high as I want to. And I started knitting the socks. This is what the yarn looks like on the sole of the sock. So quite nice, I think. And this is what the pattern looks like. This is one sock and this is the other. I like it. I think it looks really nice. It's comes out quite clearly, even though the yarn has several colors in it. But because the stripes are fairly clearly defined, and I was pretty sure that the pattern should come out nicely. And yeah, I'm using both ends of the ball, so the color stripes will run in different directions, which is something that I like. I thought it was funny that both toes started with grey, so that was good. Yeah, so that's my new cast on, another pair of Bluestockings, and the pattern is called, the patterns are all called, so there's, for every woman that she introduces, there's one sock pattern. So this is the pattern for Catharine Macaulay. Yeah, so that's that for socks for now. The next project I'm going to show you is my jacket, my cardigan, where I knit a black cardigan, and I'm now very happy to be knitting all the beautiful Wolldackel minis that were in my advent calendar 2020. Yep. And so the blue stripe is done. I've added the second color, and I have finished all the short rows on this side. So this is what the right front looks like now. And I've started knitting the short rows on this side, but only a very few of those. Yeah, so now I have to finish the short rows on this side, knit a few complete rows, and then I can start with the third color. The third color is going to be pink, and then the fourth is green, and then the last one is the bright yellow. So that's the jacket. I did not continue knitting on the Gnome pullover. It's a bit like I expected it to happen. I really do want to try this leatherback jacquard technique, but I just did not get around to looking up how that works and learn how to do that. I will do that. I just don't know when yet. Then we come to the cotton projects, and the first one I'm going to quickly show you is the vortex shawl. So that's this beautiful big shawl that I'm knitting out of very, very fine cotton, and I actually managed to knit all 6 pattern repeats last week that I want to knit every week. And I'm not going to show the whole thing again the way I did last time. If you want to see me sort of trying on the whole thing, you can check out last week's video. I just want to quickly show this. These are the stitches that I still need to bind off, and I'm binding off with a knitted on border. And I've picked up the stitch that was lost last week, that I found last week. So I came past that point where the stitch was hanging out down here with a stitch marker. So I put it back up. So I only have those stitches to do, and that's the when I've done that, I finish 3/4 of the stitches, and then I only have to cast off 200. So it's always 100 stitches from one of these pattern repeats to the next. So this is 100 stitches, this is 100 stitches, and this is a lot less than 100. So if I can do my 6 pattern repeats, I should get past this, I should get into the last 200 stitches, if that makes sense. That's the shawl. Then I continued crocheting on the crochet blanket that I started doing out of from the Talavera pattern out of the Simply Crochet magazine. And last week when I showed it to you, it was a circle, and now it's a square. I did not manage to crochet the whole second part of the blanket. So the pattern comes in parts. Every Simply Crochet magazine gets one part of the blanket. I hope I make sense today. So I only did, I think, 3 rounds, but these 3 rounds establish the square. And the way that works is I crocheted big stitches here, and then the stitches were gradually getting smaller until I was only doing double crochet or single crochet, depends. So it's English, British is double crochet, and American I think is single crochet. And then the stitches get bigger again, and then I have these really big stitches with some chain stitches in between. And then with the white and the pink, it's sort of the same technique. So I have big stitches in the corner, and then they gradually get smaller until I have this square. And now that it's a proper square, I can crochet the same size stitches the whole side, and all I have to do is increase in the corner, and then the same pattern sort of repeats 4 times. Yeah, still happy with the way this looks and feels, and looking forward to continuing. The pattern always changes, so that's what really keeps this interesting so far. I just realized I forgot to write down one of my projects, and that's the I think I didn't show it last week. That's probably why I forgot it. I'll just quickly put it in here, and that's the top that I'm knitting out of those 4 colors, and they remind me of the, I think it was heather plant, or it's this kind of flower that grows in a certain part of Germany, and we went on holiday there, and I decided to knit a top just to remind me of that area. And now we're going there again, and I really want to get this done before we go there. And I started off knitting these rounds where I sort of did 4 spirals on top of each other. Can't think of the term for the helix knitting. That's how you call it if you don't have a beginning of round, but just knit the 4 colors on top of each other. And I've reached the point where I've decided that the armhole is going to start. So I did a bit of ribbing and I cast off a few stitches, and this is one armhole and this is the other. So I cast off in a different color because I organized the colors now. So I have the 2 different green colors on this side, and I have the 2 pink colors on this side. And then at first I planned to do 4 different parts so that the neckline and the armhole would be at the same height. But now I think this would be a really deep neckline. So now I've decided to knit 2 of the colors at the same time. So I just cross the yarn when I come to this spot, and I can knit a bit with both colors until I'm a bit higher, and then I can split for the neckline. And I'm going to knit decreases to have a V-neck, and I'm also knitting a few decreases right here, and I'm also knitting a bit of ribbing at the edge, and I will knit some ribbing once I have an edge here, and so that I don't have to do any finishing. So once I've knit up all 4 pieces, I can join them on the shoulder either with a 3-needle bind off, or maybe I will kitchen stitch them together. I don't know yet. And I also don't know yet if I'm going to do both necklines the same, or maybe I'll do the same as with this top, that one will be a bit lower and one will be a bit higher, but I'll decide that when I get there. So this is really interesting and really exciting, because I have no idea what this thing is going to look like once it's done. Yeah, really exciting. That's that. And then I'm done with the cotton projects. I crocheted on the dinosaur blanket. I forgot how many rows I wanted to do every week. I think it was 10 rows, but I'm not too sure. I checked at what row I started last week. I think I did 8 rows, so not quite the 10, but I think enough rows to show you what it looks like. And I think last week I showed you that I finished the first arm of the dinosaur, and this is the beginning of its head. So as I said, he has a big head. This is the tail, and this is the second arm. And there are its feet. So this is what the whole thing looks like at the moment. Show you the back as well, which looks funny too, I think. This colourful dinosaur on the blue background. Yeah, really happy with that as usual. Enjoy the crocheting, and always fun to see how the dinosaur is growing. That's that. Then I knit a little bit on the High Sierra Shawl by Romy Hill. Didn't do a lot. Last time I showed you the finished red triangle, and I'd started with the stripes, and I finished the stripes now. It's 8 black stripes now, and now I have to start the next lace pattern, but I decided to do that later. I wanted to have a bit of time where I can concentrate on this new pattern, this new part of the shawl. But yep, this, as I said, it's not a lot. but I finished the stripes. And that brings me to the last project, and that's our knit along with the little socks. And as I showed you before, I knit 3 single socks during my holidays. This is the third one. This is the one that needs a second one. And I almost knit the second sock. And the reason I only did it almost is the yarn wasn't... it was not enough yarn to do the second sock. So I knit, this is sock number 6 that I knit out of a 10-gram mini, and the other 5 socks, I either had enough yarn, like with this sock, it's just enough. I think with 2 socks, I had quite a bit left over, and this is the first one where it didn't, where it wasn't enough. So I think it's difficult to have the exact same size for these yarn balls, and I don't think it's a big problem. I'll just use some other yarn that I have lying around to finish the toe of this sock. The funny thing is that with this ball there was a knot in the 10-gram mini, and I'm pretty sure that this bit is a completely different colorway than this bit, because this color just doesn't appear anywhere else in the sock. So it'll be quite funny to have a different color in the toe of this sock. It'd be fun if I found the same color for the toe. I'll have to look through the minis that I have and my leftover yarn. Maybe I can find the same color. Otherwise, I have a bit of green leftover yarn from knitting the green mini socks. And because there's green in this yarn, that'd be okay too. So yeah, I just wanted to show you. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So my plan was to find out how much of a sock can I knit out of 10 grams. And this was just a little bit too much. And this is the biggest of the 3 socks that I knit during the holiday. So so the second sock is a bit bigger than the first, and the third is a bit bigger than the second. So if I had knit the first sock again, it would probably have been enough yarn. So yeah, but I think that's not a big problem. Yeah, then that's again almost everything I knit and crocheted last week. I'm still working on the other project, on the special video that I'm going to do probably in 2 weeks' time, but I'll tell you more about that next week. Yeah, but I still hope you enjoyed the episode, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!